All right, so it says we're live now, but we're not actually live for another 30 seconds or so.
Oh.
Jenny or Brad, could you make me a co-host so that I can share documents also, or can I do that anyway?
You can do that anyway.
I'm gonna do, there you go. You're ready to go.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We're live, Brad.
Let's see here. We look to be, yes.
We are.
Yep, it says
Yep. Yep, we are. We're good to go.
Okay, great. It is 5:32 and I will call the Windsor Unified School District School Board Governance Workshop to order. It's January 3rd, 2021. I think we start with a roll call.
we do. So President Ahmad,
Here.
Vice President Carnation,
Here.
Trustee Adams,
Here.
Trustee Heights,
Here.
Trustee Lopez,
Here.
And student trustee.
sorry, you're right, Student Trustee Ava Hammelberg. I'm sorry, Ava.
Here. No problem.
Okay, well, let's get started. I'm going to just turn it over directly to Superintendent Decker to get us started.
Well, we just need to do the flag salute.
Oh, there we go. Who's doing the flag salute today? It is Trustee Lopez. Are you prepared to do that?
You know what? I am not. I'm not prepared to do that. I'm sorry.
Okay,
No worries.
then I can go ahead and do it for today. I think there's only a few of us on this call, so we can all say it together. So we'll just go ahead. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
States of America,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any adjustments? I guess I should follow the agenda. That's a good place to start. Do we, item 1.3, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I will ask for public comment under item 1.4. Jen, have you received any public comment?
I did get 2 emails, both from the same person. I did forward them to you. Should be
Okay.
in your email.
And those came in today?
Yes, and they came in, or at least I got them kind of late, so I forwarded them to you about 4:15, I think.
Okay. Then I will go
I did
ahead.
actually forward them to everybody.
Yeah, they're from,
Okay, I see one from Misty Stewart.
Yeah, I think they're
And
both
but-
from
but-
Misty.
They're just on 2 separate topics.
Okay, then I think I should probably go ahead and read those.
Okay, will we read both of them, you think, President Ahmad?
You know, I hadn't reviewed these until now, so I'm just looking to see if they are on different topics.
They
they
are
are
on
one-
different topics.
They are.
they're both good letters and they're both, but typically the normal rules, the way it works is that someone gets 3 minutes to
Right.
talk. And then if there's a subject matter, they can talk again for 3 minutes on that agenda item. The fact that tonight is our governor's handbook, and we really don't have any other topics other than that, I think we should probably just read the first one that she sent and then just acknowledge the other one.
I'm wondering if it would make more sense to read these at the 19th.
That's what I was thinking.
know
Let's
what I mean?
postpone it to the 19th because I don't think we have really an audience for that today either. So I think
Right.
she'll be more heard and then we can
Yeah.
get right to the issue at hand.
And I
think
did
that-
let her know when she sent them in to me that even though they may be read tonight, there would be no discussion on them because it's not, that's not part of tonight's agenda. So,
And I'm
Okay.
doing a presentation on the 19th that has to do with a lot of that, so I really think it makes sense.
perfect. I'll let her know.
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
And if I may, Stephanie, I would suggest that either you or Superintendent Decker relay that to Ms. Stewart so that she's familiar with what we've done. In case she was watching or not watching tonight, she knows what will be happening with her letters.
Can I do that? Trustee
Yes.
Knights, is that okay?
I'm fine
Oh,
with you doing that. You can
I-
even CC Jeremy and I.
I will.
Okay, great. Okay, I think with that, we can move to item 2.1, which is our workshop. And now I will turn it over to Superintendent Decker. And
Right.
Dr. Porter, welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I am lucky enough today to not be the facilitator. That will be Dr. Porter. So I'm going to participate in the conversation with you guys and hopefully, help guide things. But really, Dr. Porter, I'm handing this off to you to tell us what we should be doing and to make sure we're productive with our time. So I believe most of you know Dr. Porter. I've gotten to know Dr. Porter over the years. In fact, I told Stephanie, I think he sat down with me within my first 2 weeks of becoming a superintendent. We went to lunch, and boy, I didn't know what was going on at that moment in time. So it was a good time. He's seen me. He knows me well. I think he will be able to help, guide us so that we have a great relationship in the way we do business, which we already do. But I'm happy he's here just because I'm very comfortable with him and know how he operates. So without further ado.
Thank you, Jeremy. Could you introduce me to a couple of new board members? I know many of your board members. Hello again to some of you that I've known before. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me back. But there's a couple people. Hi, Bill. Yeah. Hi, Eric. A couple of people I haven't met before. Rich, hi. So that would be nice, Jeremy. Would you do that?
Yes. So I think is it just Malinali that you don't know? Yeah, and because you met Stephanie the other day. So is it just Malinali?
Mhm.
Yep.
And Ava.
I don't know Ava.
And Ava. Gotcha.
Ava is kind of well known all around Sonoma County, but still I haven't met her officially. I'm teasing Ava. You'll get used to me soon. So, hi, Malinali.
Malinali is our newest board member, just elected. And Malinali, I'll let you tell him a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the board.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Just briefly, my name is Malinali Lopez, and I grew up here in Windsor. Went to Windsor schools, and I'm now teaching at Sonoma State University, and I'm also a filmmaker. So what brought me to the board is just really issues of equity and social justice. And also my daughter currently goes to Cali Calmecac, and she's going to be starting the high school next year, or this fall actually.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, it has been a long time since we first had lunch that day, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
But you guys are lucky to have Jeremy. He's one of the premier superintendents around. So you're lucky to have him. Although what he knew that day back then, I guess you could hold on in your hand, right?
Pretty much.
All right. So I thought, I met with your board president and with your superintendent, and just to kind of go over and see what they wanted to accomplish. This is your board meeting. I'm here as a facilitator. And as your superintendent says, sometimes having a facilitator does give him a little bit more of a chance to talk, and your board chair, because they don't have to worry quite so much about facilitating and keeping track of time and all that kind of stuff. So some groups really appreciate a facilitator. So that's what I'm here for. But anything, you're the board, you're in charge, whatever you want to talk about today. So I thought in meeting with Jeremy and Stephanie, I thought we might kind of divide the meeting into two parts, just with your permission, spend just a few minutes in the beginning. I think it's always good when you have a new board member or you're reconstituting a new year, just to kind of go over a little bit about people's goals on the board and who you are. So I thought we might spend a little bit of time on that and then dive into the handbook. And with the handbook, I don't want to get overly wordsmithy, but I think it would be good to review it. And Jeremy has said during that time, he'll take a lot of notes, so we don't have to get down to put a comma here and that kind of stuff, so that we can concentrate, you as a board can concentrate, what do you really want in that handbook, and what things are important for all of you to affirm or to add. Does that sound all right? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try, let me see if I can do a screen share right here. Let's see, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Oh, good. So I thought, as I've said, the purposes are to as you see on the screen here, continue to build the board team, get to know each other. I think it's always a mistake when boards just assume, oh, let's just get into business, and they don't spend a little time appreciating getting to know each other. It has big payoffs in the long run, and the Windsor board has always been known. I've worked with the Windsor board for many years for its kindness and its listening and good communication most of the time. So I think that's important. And then the second part of the meeting, as I said, to review the handbook. So why don't we start again with a little bit of getting to the board here. So I have the first question down there. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. As could we go around and share a little bit about anything about your background, particularly now Malinali just did, so maybe we don't have to do too much of that. But the first question is, tell a little bit about your background and what brought you to the board. Why are you here? What's really important to you? And then what are your goals and priorities as a board? So maybe we spend a couple minutes on each person just going around and doing that. So I think just since she is your board president, we'll put the pressure on your board president first, and then we'll let her off the hook later, not always make her go first. So Stephanie, could you share a little bit about your relevant background, but mainly how that brings you to the board, what and strengths you would like to be called on to use, those kind of things. All right?
Okay, sure. Let me kick it off. So I think I'm a lawyer by training, and I think I bring that skill set to the board, but I'm also very interested in governance and education. So I feel like that's ultimately what drew me to the board, in addition to my kids being students here and my having grown up here, it combines a lot of my different interests. And I think kind of relevant to the time we're in now, the strength I bring, or I consider it a strength, is really putting myself in other people's shoes and considering different views, but understanding that if I were a different person, I would view things in a different way, and trying to influence with that in mind. So that's something that's really, really important to me. I think I do feel it is kind of lost in the broader political discourse. I think there's a lot of division, and so I try to kind of bring a unifying voice and message. Definitely believe in kindness and respect and team building. So I believe in, strong relationships. And I know we'll touch on kind of some onboarding stuff later, but something that I feel that we've missed out on a little bit in the virtual world is not being able to spend time in person with each other, which we normally would have done at the beginning of especially a new school board term with a new member, conferences and meals and just the time you spend getting to know each other. I think that's all really important. And when we were planning, I had mentioned to Dr. Porter and to Jeremy that I really believe in having fun in everything you do. I think that should be a goal of ours, is that we have a good time doing what we're doing, because it's going to make the outcome better. And that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
How
I like
about
the time. You get to pick someone else. Go
okay,
ahead.
we'll go with our new vice president.
Yes, good.
Thanks, President. So background, I'm a parent who I was a business person here in town, and I ended up getting sucked into coaching, and I ended up coaching wrestling for 25 years here in the district. I'm kind of a, when the school started, I kind of thought I had certain goals, dreams, and visions for our district, specifically the high school, and how I thought things were going. And I thought we were heading in a good direction for a long time. Then I felt like we kind of plateaued And then actually I felt like we kind of started to go backwards a little bit. And so I'm not a politician by trade I'm not a politician at all. I'm a little too blunt. And so that's one of my weaknesses. It's also maybe one of my strengths. And I'm learning how to maybe use my strengths more judiciously the last couple of years. So I like how things are going in the district right now. I really believe that we're in the last little bit. I believe we've taken an upward trajectory, and a lot of things are going well. I think probably my biggest strength is that I dream big and I work hard, and I have a lot of horsepower to try and push things over the finish line. One of the things I like about being on the board, I've learned and gained an appreciation for how sometimes the still small voice also is very powerful and has a lot of effect too. And it's I'm enjoying how things are progressing for the district. I think the pandemic right now is kind of masking how much progress we're making in a lot of areas, but that's kind of it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
So do I get to pick?
You get to pick. You get to pick the next victim here. So thank you very much.
Okay, how about Ava?
Nice. Hi, Ava. Why are you doing this?
I
What
didn't
are you interested
realize I got turned.
Yeah.
I think I have a bit of a lag in my Wi-Fi, so I may not respond within an appropriate time, but I'm trying to fix that right now. About me, I am a junior at the Windsor High School. I do this. I'm also a part of a good amount of clubs. There's Best Buddies, which works with our special ed students at the high school. Committee for Change, which works with social and environmental awareness and reform. And the debate team, which is speech and debate. Aside from that, I really joined the school board because first I didn't realize that there was a student position for a really long time, which kind of made me feel like the role wasn't being used to its full potential. I felt like if not enough people know it exists, then they're not going to know to advocate for themselves. And I realized that a lot of students have issues they're passionate about and that they want to get out there, and they just didn't know how to do that efficiently. And I wanted to help be a part of that. And I realized that a lot of students aren't comfortable speaking up in an environment where they are not as educated or they just don't really know what's going on. And I was like, I'll take one for the team. I'm going to learn how this works. And I'm going to be that person who can help facilitate between students and administrators.
Wow. Articulately said. Wow. You guys are lucky to have such an articulate young lady on your board. Oh, great. Thank you, Ava. You get to pick somebody now. Who would you like to go after you?
I will pick Trustee Adams because he's up on my screen.
Hi, Ava.
Okay.
Thank you for joining
You're
us.
on.
Thank you for joining us, Ava. I really appreciate that we have the tradition of fully integrating our student trustees. I've been on the board for coming up on 6 years now. I also am a lawyer. Before that, I spent 26 years in the Marines. I have a parent of 3 kids. In my day job as a lawyer, I principally serve as general counsel advising public entities, sort of sitting where Jeremy a little bit, but more sort of on the procedural and facilitator role to help clients get stuff done. So my interest is that we continue the move that we're making as a board to sort of get out of micromanaging and do, to me, the 2 things that our particularly board and governance team focuses. One is helping set and keep our eye on the strategic vision and policy priorities, thinking a year or 2 or 5 ahead of time, and then pick the best CEO to execute those and supervise our, school leaders, the principals, the administrators, and our teacher leaders, and frankly, with Ava, our student leaders. That has not always been the case in my experience on the board. And I think sometimes boards lapse into micromanagement because it's much easier to grab trees rather than look at the forest. But when we do that, we are not thinking about the day after tomorrow. And we are simply in a reactive mode. And I think we're getting out of that. I think we've done a tremendous job, good for us, but also lucky for us in selecting Superintendent Decker. I cannot imagine, knowing a little bit about his personality, and I had known and met him before he started, how difficult it is for him to work remotely and own and wrap his arms around this becoming his district. Sort of my strengths is I really like having everybody be engaged and everybody have a voice, be respectful for that, and be accountable for what they're getting ready to carry forward. I think we have some possibility to have more effective and efficient board meetings. I think we fared okay in our virtual time. But frankly, Paul, I'd like when we get there to talk about how we might have our board meetings get away from being some sort of public business meeting and be that rare time where we can spend maybe 50% of the meeting talking with and among the board members and our governance team. We don't do that. And when we don't do that, we miss the opportunity to build on that, right? The only other thing is on pages 12 and 13 in the handbook are some legacy goals. I don't know if you've seen it back in the fall, and Malinali Lopez wasn't part of it, but I think we created some integrated board policy goals and whatnot. So perhaps, I don't know if you've talked to Stephanie and Jeremy about that, but it strikes me that rather than getting to that appendix, which is a very important piece, that we maybe look at that work that we did last fall. But I'm open to that. I didn't know if you were aware of that or not, that there was a 1-page synthesis of 5 priorities that we did over the past few months.
I don't think I talked too much with you about it, Dr. Porter. I think I just told you that we redid the goals and that was about it, but we didn't go through the specific.
Good. So maybe we can take a look at those tonight too. At least get started. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Bill, great idea.
And I will pick Trustee Lopez so Eric can hit cleanup.
Okay, thank you. So all of you have said really wonderful things so far. So I think I might borrow some of them. But I would say if I were going to filter it down to one thing, what I really care about the most and what brought me to this board is that I really care about students of diverse ethnic backgrounds and also students who are low income. And one of the things that really motivates me is that I don't want students to feel marginalized and also to feel like they're being left out of the 21st century, especially in regards to careers and getting a high level of education beyond high school. So I really care about all of these things just because I feel that, when I was growing up in this area, I experienced a lot of racism from my teachers, from fellow students. So I really care about these issues from a personal point of view, but also because I'm an educator and I try very hard to make my classrooms very equitable so that everybody feels that they have a voice. And also as part of that, I really care about ethnic studies curriculum, just because I feel that, one of the primary challenges for young people in K through 12 is that they do not feel that they are seen in the curriculum and the instruction that they get in K through 12. So I'm talking about like everything from, English class, to history class, to learning about their own culture. You don't really get that if you're Latino and you're going through K through 12 by and large until you get to college, if that's something that you decide to study. And I just feel like that's not right. I feel that students should be empowered with as many opportunities as they possibly can get in K through 12 so that they can decide for themselves, what career they want to pursue. But I was sharing with Jeremy in an earlier meeting that if you're 16 years old, and you're in high school, you may not know, the career opportunities that are out there for you just because maybe no one has talked to you about it or you haven't learned it at school, but you don't really know. So I just really am a supporter of a really rich diversity of offerings in curriculum. So I really care about all of these issues. And I would say that that's what really motivates me and drives me. But with having said all that, I just wanted to echo what Rich said about dreaming big. And then also what Bill said about having a strategic vision. I feel like that's really important because I also do not want to be a micromanager. And I really think when you hire the best people, then they will get the job done. So I really don't, I want to stay away from micromanaging as well. So I wanted to echo, the sentiments of my fellow board members.
Wow. Thank you. Jeremy, your heart must be feel a warm feeling about avoiding micromanaging.
Look,
Not
man,
many boards
I
are at the
told
point of
you,
really.
Dr. Porter, you could tell him what I said. I told you that this is a different kind of meeting.
Yeah, he
Have
was
to get
saying you
into
were
the-
a good board. I didn't believe him, but yeah.
Don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of all that governance handbook stuff so much as have a conversation about, who we want to be together. So it's kind of nice, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. All right, thanks. Well, Malinali, who do you pick?
Let's see, I'm going to go for Eric.
Oh, thank you. Bill said I'd be batting cleanup. I think maybe it's more that I'm at the end of the lineup here. I'm the bench warmer at the end here, maybe now.
No.
No, I've talked to Paul many times, so it's nice to meet you again, Paul.
Yeah,
I
Eric,
have,
great to see you.
I have been involved with the district since 2014, but it's a little bit of a fun story. 30 years ago, almost to the day, I began my teaching career. So that's kind of exciting for me. I started my student teaching in 1991 in January. So similar to where Bill's son is now, Renee down doing his student teaching, 30 years ago, that was me. And so I've been a career educator for all that time. But I've been working out of the Windsor district. So about 7 or 8 years ago, when I was finishing my master's degree and looking which direction I wanted to go, whether I would be an administrator or be a college coach working with student teachers, or maybe go with this direction, I chose to give back to my community that I've lived in for my entire life. Aside from college, I've never lived more than about 5 or 10 miles from the district office. And so that's important to me to give back to the community. I'd done, coaching and things here, but I hadn't been involved at a higher level. And so that's what one of the reasons I chose to get involved here was because I wanted to give back to the community I lived in, not just the community that I work in. At that time, 2012, 2013, 14, the Windsor district was in some pretty serious trouble, definitely struggling financially, struggling with leadership, struggling with some divisiveness amongst the board, things like that. And I started to get a little more involved as a board watcher, and my 2 children were going to school at the time here in the district. And I felt that I had a skill set from being a teacher for all those years and being involved with the community in Calistoga, which is very ethnically diverse, and the teaching and the different different administrators that I'd worked with. I felt that gave me some good insight to potentially help the Windsor district as being involved with their leadership as well. One of the main reasons that I initially ran for the board was because the music program was struggling. They were considering cutting the music program, and that was very important to me and my family. And Bill was involved with those same challenges that year. We kind of bonded amongst those meetings for a long time there. But as I learned more about what the board was doing and the district leadership was doing, and none of those people are here anymore, by the way, very few, at least at the district level. I felt that I had some insight that could be valuable. And so the last 6 years or so, I hope that that's come through, that I have been passionate about making sure that the students are honored, making sure that the equity is there, making sure that programs have been funded and kept strong as best we could. And again, that's through multiple leadership positions, but and no fault of the board, I think, in that respect. So we have some work to do, but I think we're on a positive track, as I heard earlier from some of the other comments. And I want to make sure that we are working toward, as an educator myself, I want to make sure we're working toward getting our teachers' salaries to where they need to be competitive and retain and recruit new teachers to the district that will help us. I want to make sure that we have facilities that are in great order. We've done a lot of work with that the last several years. I want to make sure that we are not just looking at the data for test scores, but also the programs that we have and the ways that students can be enriched in other things besides only college or only the workforce. It needs to be a big combination of all of those. And so those are some of the main reasons I've chosen to be involved and lend some of my many years of teaching and working with students and lots of different administrators and different teachers to the Windsor district.
Nice. Articulately said, Eric, as usual. Thank you. Wow. Any impressions? Who do we miss? Anybody? Who do we miss?
Not unless we want to hear
anybody,
Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we don't want to hear from him. Jeremy.
You guys know what brings me here.
Let's give him a chance. What brings you here? What are your thoughts and values?
I mean, honestly, I think what really drew me to the Windsor School District was the relationship approach that is the school district. It fit me, and as I said, I'm honestly, this is just my cover letter. The cover letter was all true. I wasn't trying to sell them on anything that was not. It was really just not somebody who jumps around. I'm not looking for the next job. I really want to be in a place where I feel I can make a difference and it fits my skill set. And Windsor seemed like a place that I can make a difference and a place that fit my skill set. Ultimately, I did a lot of research about the board, heard the good people, and I thought we could do good work. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. I'm here to, we're all here because of service. I'm in the role because of service. I never set out to be a superintendent. It simply kind of happened. And it's because I want to do good by kids and kind of make a difference. So that's really the nuts and bolts of why I'm in Windsor and really in education.
Yeah, well said, Jeremy. Wow. Well, Stephanie, that was an interesting overview, huh? Yep.
Yeah. No, that was great. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think we kind of covered the goals, and even the tone came out a little bit here. Okay. Why don't I ask this anyway? As we move in a few minutes into the looking at the handbook to me isn't just about words on a page. It's about a tone that you want to have as a board, as a district. So before we jump into that in a more specific sense, why don't we hear from board members about what tone do you want as a board? Like Jeremy said, he came here because of relationships and good board members who respected each other. Without getting too platitudinous, and that kind of stuff, what kind of tone do you want on this board? What kind of a way to operate would you like this board to be known as? Bill, why don't you start us off? I see your hand, please.
Thank you. I think one of mutual respect. I think a tradition and a relationship we have is that people do their work to prep for the board meeting. Again, one of the reasons I like us to sort of shift from regurgitating what we've been sent days or weeks before. People are very diligent in this organization. I don't know, Valley, if someone's talked to you about Masters in Governance, but I believe soon, we'll hopefully 6 months or a year have every one of the 5 of us have completed the Masters of Governance program. It gives us a very common set of baseline situational awareness of governance issues for school boards. I think the other thing is trust, right? We have a tone and values that we listen, even if we don't understand. Even helps with Brother Rich and I that, we listen wondering, what an interesting thing to hear, but knowing that there is value in the diversity of our opinions and we respect those. And even if we agree to disagree, we are not generally disagreeable. The third thing, Paul, that I have found, and I relate this kind of from the experience I have working with many, many, many Brown Act government boards in my day job, is the degree to which this organization is committed and walks the walk on confidentiality. There are many times that we have issues come up, and I am not familiar really with any substantive leak outside of closed sessions. There's a whisper or two, but in a way that to me is profoundly unique in the 5 or 6 years that I've been working with boards, that sort of relationship of trust, people doing the work and being prepared, and then having that understanding of confidentiality. So when we need to have and can avail ourselves to have a closed session, and there's a few reasons that we can do that. What's said in that room, to my experience in 5 or 6 years, has never come out behind the back of anybody of the 6 people that are in there, the governance team with the soup. So that's my experience and aspiration for us to continue that.
Love it. Love it. Wow. Thank you. Bill, thanks for kicking us off on that. How about other people? Values, and there's no shoulds here. I mean, if you have a value around, always using blue ink or something, anything's okay to say. What other values would you like this board to embody as you work together and as you interact with each other?
So I can speak to the tone question because I've been thinking about this, and this is a little bit more informal, but I'm actually curious because my training in government is the courts. Like that's my government experience, and it's very formal, very seniority based. And I don't know that, and so a lot of my experience in government is that, but I think on our board, a less formal, less structured environment is much better. So I think even how do we feel about using each other's first names all the time? Or how do we, do we have thoughts? I think that's good. Okay. Well, I see Trustee Adams agrees. And I appreciate the bullet points from Trustee there I go again, from Bill, because those are all really important things. But yeah, I think a little bit of informality, but mutual respect, a balance where, we're just here to do the work. And I think we are all very hard workers. I think that is definitely a characteristic of everyone on the board.
Yeah. I think you even used the word once when we were talking, Stephanie, that there actually could be a friendliness tone on the board. Isn't that a word that you used, or am I misremembering?
Probably did. Yeah, I think I said that I feel like I am friends with everyone who is on this board because we've spent time together, we've gotten to know one another, and that's how I like work to be. I don't like there to be a line between, I don't know, it is our work, but it's also our passion because we're serving. So I think that being friends is really important to me, at least. And I think that's important to everyone else on the board too.
Yeah. You don't have to be buddies every weekend or anything, but friendliness, friendships. Yeah.
Right.
Great. Yeah. Great. Others. I think part of the tone is not micromanaging that I heard before, a tone of trusting your administrators to do stuff. I'm just kind of borrowing something you said before, but what else?
Just the spin off of what Stephanie had said, honestly, I like if we can use first names. I understand the respect that is supposed to come along with the position and what have you. And I like using the first name, so because it is more of a friendly environment. And just because Bill and we may disagree on 20% of the items, but that makes us 80% or 90%. Okay, 70%, maybe 30%. Where we're in lockstep.
Good honesty, Bill.
To echo Stephanie's point again, one of the things that drives me crazy more than anything is I may disagree with you, but if you're a hard worker, I respect you. And there is no shrinking violet on this board. Everybody works hard. Everybody comes prepared. I've learned that historically in past boards, there have been some folks that kind of didn't get along, or there were some personal issues or personality issues or whatever. And I have felt since Stephanie and I first got on a couple years ago, even though we've all had different ideas, we've all listened to each other and listened, and actually listened to each person's ideas, thoughts, taken them into consideration, tried to see how they can work, which circles back to the friend part. That's something I think nationally we're getting away from. We need to get back to. We need to be friends. I have a lot of friends that we don't agree on things. My wife and I were married. We don't agree on things. And so, but
Yeah, she
yet,
called me. Yeah.
yeah, she wants you to private tutor me, I'm sure. Anyhow, so I do like that about this board, that, and it seemed like it's been that way since we've been on it, Stephanie and I, since we joined, that there's been a pretty good level of respect and listening to our opinions, whether they agree or not. Obviously you try to persuade people to see things the way you see them, but if you don't, and if somebody votes a different way than you, they're not your enemy. They don't think, we don't think less of each other because you see something differently. You just see it differently. And I guess I'd kind of end with this. Not only is this board not lazy, but everybody on this board, in my experience so far, and Mal, we don't know you yet, but we're going to get to know you, and I'm excited to do that. But everybody votes with the idea of what's best for the kids. And that is awesome, because that's not always the case in a lot of things. So, so for me, I think that's kind of the uniqueness of our board that maybe is different from other boards and other people, is that we kind of really put what's best for the kids first. 100% of the time.
Thank you. Excellent.
I don't know if it falls into this question necessarily or not, but one thing that I struggle with sometimes is that the perception that maybe some of the community has about what the board is or what the board does or who the board are. We don't have all the answers. We don't have the crystal ball. We don't have, the finances always to do all the things that everybody wants us to do. And a lot of times we get feedback or comments about things we've done, or, posts on social media about things that are happening in the district. And it's always the board. It's always the board. It's always the board. And I understand that, being in education forever, I understand that's kind of the bottom line, and that's what we signed on for. And we've got to have some thick skin sometimes. But I'd kind of want the board, the community to understand that these different statements that are on my screen here, those are kind of our fundamental values. Those are kind of our sounding board on what we expect to give with our time and our service to the community. And I don't know how we can change some of those perceptions necessarily, but there's always going to be half the community that loves what you're doing, and maybe the other half hates what you're doing, and trying to find that middle ground is sometimes difficult. The big questions now about, can we reopen and can we have sports, and a lot of those things that people are very passionate about. Why doesn't the board just act on it? Well, because our hands are kind of tied and we can't necessarily act on everything. So maybe that's something that kind of fits into how the tone of the board is a little bit in the community compared to how we are with one another.
Thank you. Yeah. Excellent. Great. Yeah. Others? Malinali, as you hear this, anything, does it kind of bring up anything for you, or?
So I was just sort of thinking, because as you know, I'm one of the newest members here, but I really like this idea of having mutual respect and balancing that out with having fun, really listening to each other, and working hard. All of these are in line with my own values. So I think that this is wonderful. I just wanted to reiterate a little bit about what Eric was saying about maybe having better communication with the community so that they understand, how, not just the decisions that we make, but how we arrive upon those decisions. So a lot of communication, I think, is really important. And I also appreciate Stephanie's comment about, us calling each other by our first names. That's perfectly fine. You're all welcome to call me Malinali or Molly, since, we'll not be so formal, hopefully. But no, I really like this. And I think the last thing I want to say is that I think that, since I've come on, I really feel that many of you have really made an effort to make me feel welcome and have been really friendly already. So, especially Jeremy and Stephanie and, Bill, you've all been like really welcoming. So I really appreciate you for doing that.
I wish we could do more, because it does feel, it's not the same as being in a room together, but we're doing our best and we'll make up for it too. A little bit.
You need to take her out to lunch once the pandemic's over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was going to say, I do have a soft spot for coffee.
Oh yeah. Well, I have an addiction, so I think those will work together.
Wow. Well, now we're getting really personal. Addictions. Okay, great game. Yeah.
Could I interject, Dr. Porter? So for me,
of course, Jeremy.
I mean, obviously, I want a team. I want my board to be a team that has hard discussions, disagrees often, comes to the best outcome based on that discussion. And I mean, I love everything you say. It's what makes us strong is that we can disagree agreeably. And I think you guys do that really well. I want a team, my board, to come with an open mind, to do the work and know if something's coming to you for discussion, that there's some rationale behind it. And I think all of you do that well. None of you come with the closed mind saying, no, this is how I'm voting, or this is what we're doing, regardless of what's said by the person put in front of you. And so I think those, I don't know if those are values in tone, but really, I guess openness is a value, and being willing to disagree agreeably is a value in a lot of ways. And I think we do that well. So I'm really just reiterating what we do well, but I think it's what makes us strong, and it's good to highlight some of our strengths sometimes, not just the things that, we struggle with.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure some of you are sitting there thinking, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to add on and one more thought in the dream big category, but it goes to value and tone. I mean, I'm a little bit competitive, and I want our board to be known as being a really great board that people in the community think, oh, that board is it's working well. I'm glad that those elected leaders are representing the values of our community. That's really important to me, especially in light of, divisions both locally and nationally. I think it's just really important to do a great job. So a little competitiveness, a little bit of big dreaming. Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
I would expand upon that, Stephanie. I mean, even beyond just our board, I think the board works well, but I think the relationship between us, I want that to be known as being one of the best around, right? Superintendent board relation. I also want our union relationships with the board and superintendent to be known as some of the best around. I think that we can, in all of our positions of leadership, I think that if we can model how we believe everybody should be acting, it goes a long way. And yes, I think that's extremely important. I wish I would have said it. I would have sounded really cool if I would have said it before you. But that's you
still sound cool.
Important.
Don't worry.
I don't know if he sounds cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry for interrupting you, Dr. Porter. You go ahead.
I think you really wanted to say, Stephanie, we don't want to just be a good board. We want to be the best board, right, Steph?
There you go.
Yeah. People who are competitive don't want to be number two. So.
True.
Yeah, healthy competition. Yeah. So I was just going to add an inane comment here that to some of you, these might seem like, okay, those make sense, or they're pretty obvious. They're not. They are not. Jeremy and I can tell you, having worked with and seen boards all over, there are amazing problems out there. For you guys to capitalize on the strengths you have is a rare and special opportunity. I think I have told Stephanie and Jeremy, I actually had to break up a fight between two board members once in the parking lot when I was a superintendent. So there are some amazing things out there. So this is my be thankful speech here. So, but work hard or you'll lose it. All right, enough of my blabbing. All right, anything more on that? Yeah,
I just have
Good
two
stuff.
since I started. I don't know if Mally has seen her name tag yet, but you need to swing by and see Jen to look at your name tag. But I think, Paul, as you know, I'm gonna call you Paul too, even though you got a doctor.
Of course,
It's Dr.
yes,
Phil.
of course.
It's like Dr. Phil.
No,
We have, I believe it's what's on page 8, our norms and guidelines. And you were talking about detangling two wrestling board members. We actually have taped on the back of each of our name tags, I believe, those norms and guidelines from a prior era where I think perhaps you were the one who helped integrate that into the handbook.
Yeah. Yep.
And we try and walk the walk on that. One thing that Jeremy said, I don't think it's a 5+1. I always have considered, and I hope we continue to move forward, that our government's team is 6 people. There's 5 of us elected schmucks and a CEO, but we're an integrated whole to get the vision and mission and priorities done. And I think we do a pretty good job sustaining that, not just as as an image, but as the reality. And I think we're stronger because of it. So those are my only 2 thoughts.
Yeah. I added and superintendent to that team. Bill, thank you. Very excellent. Yeah.
Just call on Ava
Okay, gang.
quickly. Do you have anything?
Yeah,
from a student
Ava, do you want to add
perspective?
anything? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. Just as someone who is far less educated than all of you, I think it's amazing how when you
You're smarter, I think.
It's when I do give my input, I definitely feel like they're like keeping that in mind and they're applying what they know about me and about the situation, and they're understanding that if I'm reporting student perspectives or opinions, that they may be making those assumptions without understanding all the complexity that I'm now learning about. And that the board is just, it really reassures me when I do give my presentations that they're not going to assume that I'm oblivious to all of the layers of government and how a school district works. And it really makes it a lot easier for me to present things and to kind of speak more openly. I'd also like to point out about the being more casual. I was raised by a mom with really like Southern views. So if someone would like me to continue to use Mr. and Miss, please let me know so that I do that.
You're one of us now.
Yeah.
We're not going to hold you to a different standard. We're choosing to have you here, and we like that you're here. And so you're part of this team as well. We said 6, we actually should say 7. So.
Thank you, Eric. I misspoke. I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right, thank you. Excellent discussion, gang. So we're almost ready to go on to the handbook now. And I'm going to ask Stephanie if she wants this brought up now. The last thing we had before we jumped into the handbook that I had, I was going to say President Stephanie, but can I use your first name too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Is that you wanted to spend a little time talking about what to do with ideas and issues that come up so that they don't get lost. Right now, I think there's a list that you keep somewhere of parking lot ideas, et cetera. Do you want to talk about that now, or should we wait till the end? What do you want to do with that?
Yeah, well, I hopefully it will frame our discussion. So Bill referenced the 1 page of goals that we developed, and that really should be incorporated into the handbook. And I think that is Jeremy's plan to incorporate that in as well. But that the parking lot is kind of part of, and it's our upcoming school board items list is kind of reflective of it should be reflective of what our goals are. So just coming up with a process and a system to keep everything not only on our plate, but also making sure that it's aligned with what our actual goals are, and making sure that if something comes to us, that we address it and figure out, okay, where does this go? Is this going to be a priority? Do we need to schedule a study session or a workshop? Or is this not a priority now, and can we kind of strike it from the list? Has it been dealt with? Has it been delegated? So kind of like just a process to deal with things as they come in. And Bill actually described what I want to talk about in an email. Can you said it best of kind of going over our goals.
I'm looking.
Let me see if I can find it, but he just uses the best.
You're looking in the
words.
handbook now?
Oh, so he wrote to me, focus on addressing recent district priorities list and how that translates to superintendent action goals with an emphasis on how we define and measure success. That's perfect. That's what I want to do. So, and as we go through, I really want to keep it discussion oriented, not, Jeremy can make the revisions. He can keep, I'd like your input too, as we're talking, but I think we really want to talk about things a little bit more broadly and focused on goals.
And one thing that I think we've already done to allow us to do more of that is to kind of pare down our meeting schedule, where we may have one longer meeting a month instead of two that are, a little bit monotonous. That second meeting can be some of these extra parking lot study sessions or, deeper dives into things that we want to really work on in the future. So that gives us a little more freedom without feeling over encumbered with time, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I love that idea, Eric. Stephanie actually mentioned that the other day when we were speaking. I think that I can do some thinking. Here's what I hear. I hear we'd like to have more time to discuss things among the board, right? And to orient ourselves to achieve whatever goals we have set. And so I think I can be strategic about maybe scheduling some study sessions centered around certain topics that really allow you, I should say, to develop direction and then for me to carry it out. So I love that idea of taking some of those the second date that we may have had and creating some study sessions centered around some topics that maybe you guys generate or I can propose.
How does the board feel about those suggestions, perhaps for the superintendent to come up with a list of possible study sessions and schedule those from time to time, of course, with board looking at what topics they would like for these sessions? Is there board consensus that that's a good idea?
I think that this is a great idea. I think that there also may be moments where we just simply need more information about a topic. And I think those study sessions could be a good opportunity to learn more about something where we just need more information and need to look at it more deeply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agree.
Yeah, some of my best memories of work we've done on the board is when we just, sit around a table. Well, parenthetically, you can't really sit around a table now, but when we sit around a table and roll up our sleeves and just kind of dive into something, we haven't had a chance to do that with Jeremy. But I think that's something he would value as well as that would be beneficial to the district at large. So.
Yes, great. Others, you like this idea? Bill, I see you nodding a little bit there, yeah?
Yeah, am I muted? I got to get, hang on.
Oh, you're fine now. We can hear you.
Am I okay? So I was just looking at our December 15th agenda because I wanted to give an example, Paul, so you were aware. So one that we have carried to Mally's point, and I understand there's some legislation at state level, was ethnic studies and an update on those. And our labor groups have said they'd like to start sort of a social justice action thing. And I can see that sort of as an ad hoc. How do we develop those notions? Rich had an idea of working with SCO on this broad issue, and you've been around the block a lot, Paul, about possibly changing and integrating, expanding our district boundaries, looking to the economic area down by the airport as a possibility of advancing new revenue. Parcel tax information possibly as another revenue source. Campus security. We have an ongoing discussion on multiple fronts with the town. I know we have a visual and performing arts strategic plan that came out of this kind of process. So in my experience, and I think Stephanie's right on the money, these get in there. Sometimes, we have fires, floods, and pandemics and everything else. We don't get to them. Sometimes it's almost, it seems to me, too hard, sort of eating the elephant one spoon at a time. And I think we made some headway, although it's frankly stalled a little bit in light of the pandemic, when we created occasionally ad hoc or working groups, which I think can have some board members, but maybe, community and outside organizations as well might be good to help move these along. So that's kind of historically how we've dealt with it, but sometimes the list gets long, and I'm just looking at the one from December 15th. There's stuff that's been on there for 18 months, which to me is, well, either it's not that important or it's too hard, or maybe somewhere in between, we just never got to it, right? But I think many of the things that are on there are important, right? Or we need to decide whether they still are, perhaps under the new board. So,
Or take them off if they're not.
or take,
Yeah. Yeah. Others? Well, it sounds like you have some consensus here that you'd like to do this. Just from experience as a superintendent myself, it's really hard to have a robust discussion at 9:15 at night when you've got 20 minutes on an item or something. It's just really hard. So, other input or thoughts on this one? Stephanie, do you think this gives direction here?
I think so. I think some of the topics still to be determined, right? Because we haven't really even gotten into discussing the goals, but I think what I'm seeing on there is actually pretty reflective of some of I think the main things that we'd like to focus on. But I really like, now that we're moving to having one meeting a month, that we work on actively setting these workshops or study sessions or whatever we call it. Maybe we start out with, single topics and then see where it goes. So I think I'm very happy. If there's anyone else who wants to chime in.
Yeah.
Other
board members, are you happy? Go ahead.
For me, that list is kind of, it does two things. Just me and my personal life and my business life. I've got a lot of lures out there in the lake, and I may have 20 different fishing poles going on, and some I'm just kind of going for the surface fish, some I'm going for a mid-level, and some of them, you got to let sit out there for a while. And it's like, for example, the airport business park and going down there. I mean, I wish I could snap my fingers and it'd be done today. I think that's one of those more things that may take longer time, because it's not just in our boards. It's just not up to us. There's up to other things, and there's preparatory things that need to take place. Sometimes there are some ideas that are good ideas, and it'll be a good idea in 2 or 3 years. It needs to mature. Some ideas we've learned, or I've learned last year, I thought there was a really good idea. Somebody brought it up, and man, a bunch of people jumped down that poor person's life. And so sometimes some things need to mature a little bit, the ideas. So to leave them on the list, to know that this is something we need to get to. But again, some things need progress. But progress for some ideas may be a little bit of a movement once a quarter. I think that there's some other things that we could implement a lot quicker. And I think that might be better defined in our goals as we go down with our group, to where we have some very specific goals this year, some pretty specific goals next year, and then we have some general goals that are kind of down the road, that some things just can't take time to do. So, but I would like to see where we get a little more action on them. And I honestly don't know how to move some things forward. I feel a different spirit of progress in our district right now. And so maybe some of these things might get a little more traction, or as we go forward. But I don't know, maybe as a group with Mal now on the board, maybe we, like, as I think Bill mentioned earlier, maybe we need to just review them, go over it just really quickly and say, hey, is this still of interest to anybody on the board to discuss more? You know, and our superintendent, you know, he may have some ideas that he wants to add to that list, or take some off or consolidate a few things. So, so just the way my brain works and how I'm planning and I do things, you know, I've got things that I want to do down the road. It's not something I can do now, but you'll do little things to prepare for that goal or that opportunity down the road a little bit. So,
Yeah. Good.
And I think I could do a better job. I think that because a lot of those goals preceded me, they're not top of mind and for me. And so I think I could do a better job of following through on what was already on, you know, as a future agenda item or whatever it may be. So I'll reflect on that and do a better job too.
And I'm going to take some ownership of that as well, because I was president last year and a lot of those things never got moved on a bit at all. And I understand that. But at the same time, to use Rich's analogy of the fishing lake, you know, we didn't know there'd be an alligator that would jump in and have our superintendent leave. And we didn't know there'd be an earthquake that would open up and we'd lose half our water with the pandemic. And so those things take precedent. You know,
in the boat.
Or yeah, we fall out of the boat, right? There's lots of things that, you know, you don't expect are going to happen. And we may do the best we could, and we're continuing to do the best we can. And sometimes those extra things do get put on the back burner and we don't catch that fish for a while. So.
Well, the reason I use that analogy, Eric, is because I wanted to show Stephanie that I could come up with an analogy that didn't have food in it. So,
Well, I mean, fish it's almost a meal. I was thinking about this as you were speaking, but I think I think Malinali. Well, I eat raw fish, so
maybe if I would have said fillet of fish, but
yeah. But I think Malinali was going to say something, so I just wanted to make sure to circle back.
Go ahead, Malinali. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to offer a suggestion, and I really feel that as a board, we should be able to decide together if we have enough information about a topic to move it forward. And I think that should really be an integral part. So for example, you know, if we're deciding on, let's say, a parcel tax, you know, do we have enough data and information about that to move that forward? And I just feel that together we should be able to decide that. Or perhaps it's a situation where we feel we need to have a study session because we don't have enough information about, let's say, the new ethnic studies requirement, you know, and we really need to be able to understand that better before making a decision. So I think that, you know, together we can decide, you know, when is the right time based on what information we have at our disposal. And in an earlier meeting with Jeremy, I was sharing that I'm as passionate as I am about certain things, I'm a big fan of data and research. And I just feel that it's impossible to make a good decision without the appropriate level of data and research. So I feel like that's really key.
Yep.
So Jeremy, what would you propose as the next step on this one? Maybe you know, doing a little survey at a board meeting of what board members would, and then having another meeting where you set possible topics, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think I want to internalize kind of what was said. So I think a lot of this is on me to kind of research what the priorities were in the past and to see what we can tackle first. But beyond that is to really think about all of the different topics that would really be done well in a study set, having a study session, having just extended time to speak about them. So first, I think I want to come up with the topics. Then I want to prioritize them with the board. You know, where should we start first? And then set some dates so that I can start on that data, the research, to get you the information you need to have a good discussion. So I don't even know exactly what I just said to you all the way, Dr. Porter, but it was what was going on in my head.
It was amazing.
Scary. Amazing equals scary sometimes. Anyway, I think that I need to do some more thinking about what was on there and what we can tackle and set some dates.
I mean, Jeremy, would you, if there's an item that we think is just really pressing, or something that's really, for example, like me, I really would like to see us go super hard at finding additional revenue sources.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is the more money we have, the more we can do. I
Sure.
mean, the marginal things that would be nice, but we can't afford. If we can afford them, that just makes the experience that much better for everybody. So, so for example, like the airport business park, if we could bring it in to our school district, and we might be able to go basic aid. It might be, I know some things that are happening down the airport district that are significant that are going to be coming up. That would, if that was part of our school district, it would be really beneficial to us in a financial manner. So again, that's what I'm saying. If we can create a revenue source sooner, that gives us more latitude to do a lot of other things other ways. So, but I think there's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 different things at the board. We may want to have goals where they're all running parallel tracks, but at the same time.
What about this, guys? What if, I mean, I'm listening to the things that are priorities. I can look into the past, what the priorities were. What if I developed a list of, anywhere from 5 to 10 things that I think would be good study sessions that our priorities have been discussed? I put those out to you guys and you kind of rank them. This is where you rank them in order, not of importance, but in order of when we need to address them. Like, when do we need to have that study session? Okay, this should be our first study session that we have. And then that will allow me and my team to put together the data or the research that's needed so we can have a robust discussion. Would that be a good way to move forward with this?
Is this from the previous conversations or also including our conversation today?
I think all of the above, and anything that comes over the next few days if they get sent to me as well.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I also think we need to, I think after we see kind of the next part of this discussion that we're having, we may have more thoughts. And I don't know how much of a goals discussion is going to be part of our discussion. I was hoping it would be a significant part of it, but if there may be more that comes out of what we talk about now. So yeah, I think between this and sending you some more feedback and ranking, we should have, I think, what we need to kind of prioritize.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, Bill.
So Steph, before we go on, Melly just encouraged me, and thank you for that comment, Melly. I think this is dynamic. It is not, I saw some curious comments that are coming in. Thank you, Jen, for feeding us the chat room coming in from Facebook. I know early on when I talked to Jeremy, I said, if I had dreaming big and had aspirational, I'd like us to have 5% of our time to talk about what sort of inspirational, why not? Why aren't we doing this? I heard about something somewhere. Could we do that? If we can't, why? Have we ever thought about doing that? And to carve out some time about the why not us? Let's try this. Let's look into that and have that deliberate, not leftover time to say, boy, it sure would be good if we could brainstorm and think about the what ifs, but to build that in. And I don't really know how to articulate any better, but I think that helps us stay fresh. We haven't had a school boards conference this year, but I know anytime around those, or I saw there's some trainings at SCO, I never walk out of there without thinking, I got 4 or 5 things. Why aren't we doing these things? What's the story about this that I'm hearing other folks have been able to get their organizations moving on? So some deliberate commitment to exploring and discussing potential innovation and creativity ideas, I think would be a nice add-on to this area of future considerations. I didn't say that as well as I'd like, but because I think if we don't, in my experience, if I don't consciously do that, I think about it in the rearview mirror to say, gosh, I wish we would have made some time to talk about those things. That's where that's sort of coming from for me.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Good thought. All right. Well, are we ready? Stephanie, should we move now to looking at the handbook? And perhaps as we discussed, there might be some other things that come up to add to our other list. Is it that time, do you think?
I think so.
Do we want to take a
Okay.
moment to read some of the comments that have come out from the community in our chat?
Good.
Yes, I think Bill addressed in saying that the list is meant to be dynamic, but the comment came from Terry Oden about hoping that the parking lot doesn't mean it's something that we lock away, that we don't, work with, and also likes the idea that we might take one Tuesday a month to deep dive into one of those parking lot items in order to move them on or off. And I think we can move forward. That's all I saw. If anyone has seen other comments.
There are more
let me know.
above, but Terry also mentioned.
I didn't see that, all 5 more. Go ahead, Eric.
Terry Oden also mentioned that there is an assembly bill regarding ethnic studies that's been sent to the education committee. I've tracked that and followed that a little bit. And it's been denied at one point, back for a rewrite again. Now it's coming forth another time. It just would have been really difficult for Windsor to do all of their own work and then have it denied. So we're following the lead of the California Education Department and the assembly bills that are coming with that. He also mentions, as does Drea Heffler-Lagord, that first names are getting us away from the old school, more 21st century, more user-friendly ideas. So we'll try to avoid the Misters and Misses and presidents and things like that, and we'll call each other by our first names, which is more comfortable for all of us anyway. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Thank you. All right. So my understanding of looking at the handbook, and by the way, great discussion on these other things. Thank you all so much, is that we not get into over wordsmithing, because we could be here all night deciding on sentences, but we kind of take a look at the handbook. One, make sure that there's still agreement and understanding about the different sections. And two, are there some things that need to be added in general or changed? That's kind of when we discussed it, what we talked about. Does that sound all right? Stephanie, does that capture? And Jeremy is going to be taking a lot of notes here on this, so we don't have to worry about, did they catch that comment and such?
Yep. Yeah, sounds great.
Madam President, yes. Okay, good. All right. So let's see. I even have it here if we want to look at it in this format. Yeah. Can you see it on my screen now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that'll help or not, Stephanie, but I just thought that might be good. So obviously you need to change some, who the superintendent is and who's on the board, that kind of stuff. So here is the outline of the handbook. And it starts with vision and mission and guiding principles. And I guess that's the place to start, huh? So here is the page that has unity of purpose and when you're at your best and the principles you'd like to follow. All of you, do they all have this, Jeremy? Or
It was sent to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't print it off for
Okay.
everybody.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how you want to do this exactly, but
Is there a way, would it be worth our time simply to, I actually, think that this is a pretty good handbook. The aspirational language in here, I think is pretty strong. Would it be beneficial just to say, is there anything that you feel needs to be changed? Because we may just say, no, this fits us still, or it doesn't. And I think it would, I don't know. I
yeah.
think it might
Love
be
it.
an approach.
So kind of look at what you're saying, Jeremy, let me make sure here is take a look at all these topics, right? That are on the screen now. And, any areas where that need to be changed or we need to add to, or things that are left out of the handbook in general. That's what you're proposing?
I am. For instance, I think that there should be something about my evaluation, in the handbook, but it's not really here. I have some ideas with regard to that, but that would be toward the end. So,
Well, just to throw it out, it says Windsor School District is at its best when, and the first bullet point says education is a shared community partnership. I'm not exactly, I think I know what that means, but I'm not sure what that means. And so that either needs, for me, that's the first bullet point. So when Windsor School District at its best when education is a shared community partnership. I either want to get it out of there or have somebody work it to what it means. I don't know where it came from originally. It might be a carryover. I think what they're trying to say is when the community, the parents and the teachers and everybody is kind of working together, that might be what that means. I'm not so sure. So if we have 5 or 6 bullet points of what our district is best and one of the board members, isn't even sure what that first one means, I would either get rid of it or find out where it came from, have it worked a little bit better. Because that's the first thing that somebody sees when they say, hey, so Windsor could only be one, what is it? You know?
So I have a suggestion to address that because I kind of have a similar concern. We worked out all of our district goals, and I do feel like we thought broadly about the brand of the district and kind of what our core values are and what our purpose is. I really think this should be replaced with what we came up with, and maybe now is the time to share that on the screen,
Sure.
Jeremy, so that because I don't think Malinali was part of that discussion, even though it happened fairly recently. So that's kind of where we are now. And I think it makes sense to use that as a starting point and to wordsmith this to match that, or even put this in and kind of replace some of these fields.
Thank you, Stephanie. I actually really would like to see that because I agree with what Rich said about the first bullet point. And also I feel like the second bullet point is a little bit drab and kind of vague as well. So I would like to see those.
Can you see the screen?
We still
Oh, you
see
can't see
Paul.
my screen?
We see Paul's
No.
document.
Okay. So
Maybe if Paul stops, I said Paul instead of Dr. Paul. If Paul stops sharing, and then you may be able to share more easily.
yeah, I have never tried to share over somebody else.
Okay,
Hey, Paul, haven't you ever heard?
okay, I will. I'm sorry, I'm
You're never
sorry.
supposed to let,
So I'm going to stop my share. There you go.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me make this smaller. So these were the goals, as you all know.
Jeremy, can you make that a little bit bigger?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Richard, the young man. I appreciate that, man.
And I just got my brand new glasses from Eyes on the Green, so it's got to be the screen.
How's that look?
That's
That
better.
looks good. Yeah, and I would even look to the left at the bullet points in yellow. I could see these bullet points replacing some of those bullet points on that page. I think they kind of reflect similar things, but we've elaborated on what we mean in more
It really
detail.
does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is much better.
Mally, in addition to seeing them here, if you go back and look at the December 1st or December 15th board meeting, one of those, maybe in November, it's in the board packet, which is, I frequently pull things up. If you go and look there, you can have it up on your own screen as well. It's just easier to read.
And I wonder if Jen's posted this on the website yet. If not, we need to get this posted on
Yes.
the website.
This
Can you
looks
pull
really
I have
good.
not, but I will.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
I mean, I actually like how you have the bullet points in the yellow with a little definition to the side. I mean, I'd almost just say pull that thing and pull that in and stick that in here.
Mhm.
I mean,
I would agree. I would even say use your best judgment and
Okay.
and update that section.
I can do that.
Great.
But I
design
but
this
I
around
want
the board goals.
I do want to let others provide feedback if they have it.
I think originally when we talked about that page we looked at with Dr. Porter a little while ago, that was just kind of our one pager, overview, umbrella view of the main document. Maybe we didn't get deep enough into it otherwise, but this is a much deeper dive than just that one or two sentences. The district is best when. This replaces this full page replaces about 2 inches of the document we were looking at originally. So I don't know if it's, I don't mind using this whole thing instead of that, but it's a much bigger piece of a document than what we had as just an overview before.
And I'm wondering if we said Windsor School District is at its best when we provide a well-articulated learning experience for students in order to prepare them for life after high school graduation. Or we could.
More of a vision and then yeah.
I think I can play with this with the concept of building around our goals that we did spend a study session on quite a bit of time. I can work on this if this is kind of the direction, so that we don't get caught up in, like you said, the wordsmithing, because this could take hours, right? If we tried to do this all together. And let's see if I can take a stab at it. And get it out to you.
That'd be good.
Okay. I mean, I'm game if you guys are.
Does anybody else have an affinity, a strong one? I kind of do, for the schools and facilities or state of the art and specialized programs, foster student success. I think that fostering student success, that's kind of already in there in one of the other ones.
Mhm.
But I can't see the whole screen now because it's perfectly sized, too big.
Yeah.
No, but I do want to make sure that we keep something, hopefully, about our facilities, because in general, our facilities in our district are pretty good. And I hear a lot of parents talk about how nice our facilities are and things. And so I hope that we keep a spirit of maintaining that.
Sure. And in here, anyway, I don't need to get too far into it. Let me see what I can come up with, knowing that is something that is of interest, Rich. And I'll take a stab. I think I could do this part.
Let it be written, let it be so.
So
Sounds
here's
like you
here's a
have
piece, Stephanie,
consensus.
that maybe not for tonight, but if you scroll up just a little bit to the headers above the yellow box, Jeremy, one of the things, no, up a little more. There you go. So if we have board goals, what I would hope is these indicators of success lumped under the yellow, right?
Mhm.
Somehow translate to what your performance goals are.
Yes, sir.
Right? That we have indicators of success for the board, and to me they're the board setting the district goals.
Nice.
Right? So we have those in the last 2 pages of this handbook, many of which are echoed here. Concern I have, frankly, is when here we have 5 goals with 3 to 4 indicators of success. That's 15 or 20. The page we were just looking at with the district is best when, that's the vision is not in there, but that seems to be the vision placeholder. Then there's 20 guiding principles. And all of those are noble, and I like what they say. But when we have so many, it's almost like nothing is important, right? If everything's important, then they're not prioritized. Or at least here we said, here's 5 goals. Here are a handful of indicators of success. From those, I would hope that the superintendent and his fellow executives, teachers, staff, et cetera, and connecting with the community when you get to the bottom goal, become our sort of operational plan for the next year or 2 or 3, right? That's how I see this flowing out. Not, all right, we have a list of words on page 3 of the governance handbook. Now we have a 1-page sheet with a yellow sidebar. How do these interrelate? To what end? Well, why? Saying them is good. I think it's important to develop them, and we put time doing it. But, where do we see this document that Jeremy has? What do we see the use and utility and purpose of this document now that it's been adopted? And Mally may have some feedback to adjust it a little bit. But I wonder what comes next and how do we use this document and tool? That's sort of the broader picture that I have.
And how does that connect to the LCAP, which is on the right-hand column of it?
Right, exactly right. That was a statement and a question for the other 7 people, including Ava on the call. Just what do we do with this?
Does the board feel it's important to have the LCAP goal connection on the right side? Or Jeremy, do you think that's important?
I feel it's very important. I mean, we used to do strategic plans, right? And now the LCAP is our strategic plan. So if we're gonna, and it's how we spend our money. And as a board, if we're gonna set our goals, then that's where we should be investing our money. And I think the LCAP is that story. So it seems like it should be tied pretty tightly.
We started doing that about 3 or 4 years ago for the first time, where our goals reflected what the LCAP said. And we hadn't done it before that. And so it's kind of a trend that a lot of districts are using now.
Mhm. You guys are in the forefront of doing that.
Should I keep sharing or should I stop share so we can see each other's faces? What would you prefer?
Can I just make one observation?
Yep.
In the section called student engagement.
Yes, ma'am.
And just, I'm sort of just like brainstorming right now, just sort of thinking outside the box. But I was just thinking that, I really like the language in this section called student engagement. And I think that this is an opportunity where we can really shine as far as really becoming this, hub for educational partnerships in the community. So for example, where it says provide equitable opportunities for all students, regardless of gender, race, and socioeconomic status. I really think that, something that we could consider in a future study session is, working with local, nonprofit agencies and other groups, to really figure out like, what other opportunities can be brought forward for students, to have discussions about, these issues, like what are the challenges that they feel that exist, and what opportunities can be created to address these challenges. So I think that, for example, having conversations at a very basic level with different groups, I think could provide an opportunity to document, what we're doing, and to share successes about, what we're doing, because I really think that a lot of these can be discussed in community dialogue, so that we also are getting input from the community about, how we're doing, what we're doing, all of that. So just kind of thinking outside the box, but I'm really excited about what is in here so far, what I've seen.
I'm glad.
Yeah, and to address the kind of similar thing, but from a different perspective, I think that when we evaluate kind of what we have on our list of action items, I think we should probably be making sure that at least one of these lines in here reflects like that it supports one of the goals. So I just want to make that part of the process, that and I think everything we have on our list, you could easily find maybe one or more lines that it could fall under. But I think as long we want everything to be connected and for it to make sense, like our governing handbook should reflect what we're doing, what our actual goals are at that time. I mean, we do update this, I think almost maybe every 2 years. So we could do it more frequently, potentially, but keeping this current and making sure that it's aligned.
It could be part of your annual organizational meeting. This could be a regular thing because the board is required to elect officers, do all that. This could fit very logically with that meeting where you reaffirm or modify this at the same time.
Yeah, and I think what I meant more was the goal setting is something we do every year, the district goal setting. And then if this could be kind of this revision could be part of that, possibly.
Right. I get it.
I'm on.
Yeah,
I think I got a good idea. I think I can handle this one.
Wow.
Stab at it.
Okay.
We'll see about that.
So Jeremy, I have one more fly in the ointment for the group.
Yes, sir.
I think given where we've been in the remote meeting challenge and how that reflects probably in your interaction with your direct reports, I don't feel as comfortably informed and engaged that we have gotten community, staff, and student input into, go up just a second, whatever that white column in the middle is called, I can never remember it. The indicators of success. I think the board has said,
indicators.
we're articulating 5 goals. Now, when we get to those, how has that give and take and feedback to both communicate, but also get the buy-in? I mean, you may get feedback from your site principals and their staff, through our labor organizations, through our community advocates. Got it, but okay, of those, which is most important? What does this mean when we look at under every one of those indicators of success, sort of to Mally's point? I think there's a handful or maybe several handfuls of action steps for implementation for those. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to figure out here, certainly before school's out, maybe even in the first quarter, to kind of let's get feedback, because I'm okay when we need to make top-down decisions, but most of the time I would prefer we do that from a collaborative and inclusive approach. And I don't have, I'm happy to own this. I think this is a good capture of where we are, but I think now we may also take concurrently in the remaining 5 months of this year to really take this out and trot it out and say, okay, community, staff, partners at various levels and stakeholders, what do you think about this?
I think that's a really good point, Bill. And to your point, this was a top-down approach. This was myself, direct reports, and the board, right? So I think that you bring up a good point really actionize this, there does need to be buy-in. And right now, I would say the majority of our staff probably doesn't even know they exist. So that's the next step. I'm on board for it. Yep.
Jeremy, they may not know they exist because maybe historically the board goals have been something that's more of an academic process of doing and putting down, but not really following through with it all the way. But, you know, and again, I don't want to use it as a checkoff list either and say, hey, look, we're doing a great job because of X, X, and X.
Sure.
These things are the things that we want to do for all the kids. And this is how we would do it, to where I think these are awesome goals that each year, I don't even know that we would change the goal as much as maybe change the way or the way we implement ways to get to them. So we might refine those.
Refining.
Hey, look, under student engagement, we tried A, B, and C this last year. A and B didn't work so well. We did C, that was good. So we're going to do that again this next year. And now we're going to try D and E to see if we can make it even better. Those kind of things, I think, is kind of maybe more in line with how we implement these kind of things or see them come to fruition.
I'm with you.
Kind of connecting on that discussion there, I'm sure that when the high school just completed their WASC self-study last year, that they had very similar discussions about expected student learning outcomes. Or ESLers, whatever they're called now, that changes all the time. But this document could be something that could guide them as well from a higher level. So connection between those two items, or even through the other schools at the lower levels, knowing that we're on the same page is very valuable.
Yeah,
well, and we get the SIPSs, which we've just gotten those from the schools, the single plan for student achievements. We have dashboards and metrics and things that help populate this. I think as much of the branding and communicating that, not only are we committed to do it, but also have people understand that we're committed to do it, right? To have this be a circle that goes around, right? Because if these goals are still relevant, I like the idea of keeping them consistent for several years in a left column. And then those indicators of success are fed by data, by results, by experience, by adjusting to distance or hybrid learning or whatever in the current crisis. But, you know, to have this work, the 8 or 9 of us on this call are not the ones that are going to make it work, right? It's going to be students and their families in their relationships with teachers. I remember years ago, from your question about the LCAP call, our classified union president was having difficulty getting membership to come to the LCAP meetings until he said, look, this is how money's getting spent now. If we want to keep custodians and bilingual community liaisons or para-educators in the classroom, this is where these decisions are made. And it was a sea change because people said, oh, that's why it's important. And that was important for getting that buy-in and connection with our process. Because I think that's so important, because if people understand and get the vision, in my experience, they really want to come on board and be helpful, cooperators and collaborators. And if they have a different view or a different priority, they want to try and persuade us, I'm cool with that too. But if they're not engaged and aware, we're sort of, trying to run a race with our legs tied together and one hand behind our back in my mood. I'm trying to give a good Rich Carnation analogy, but that wasn't as good as fishing.
And with
Fishing
that,
without bait.
No. You can't do that without, but yeah, there's no fish in that analogy.
actually, I was going to say, if you're going in the parking lot and you have both legs tied and one hand behind your back, I got my money on Ahmad. I think she can take you.
All right.
Well, that was pretty good on page 3.
I think it's
study
the
session for this.
It's the most important page, though. So I think I really appreciate Bill's point, though, about community, not just community input, stakeholder input, the people who are going to be carrying this out. So I don't know that we want to necessarily post this right away. Maybe post it as a working draft and say, with that as part of the document, that this is, the first draft, and we are going to be getting more input as well.
Sure.
And I never want to minimize that of all of us sitting here, Ava is directly tapped in through her school-based committees to our 5,000 constituents.
Mhm.
And Ava, please chum in the water and find out what your peers and particularly the middle and youngster kids might be interested in, because we don't know what we don't know about what goes on at the schools and what the kids think.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to prioritize that right now. I actually met with the Cali middle schoolers today, and I met with the Windsor middle school students yesterday, and I'll next week's meeting, you're going to be hearing a lot about what middle schoolers are thinking about doing right now.
They want better pizza for lunch.
They want recess to be longer.
Those are valid requests.
Now we know that you really are tapped into them.
Yeah. Okay, it seems like you've reached consensus on that modifications and what to consider there for the first page. And I think, Jeremy, you have your marching orders on that. Do you want to keep continuing? Do you want to continue through the handbook? Do you want to read this on your own and get input to Jeremy? How do you want to proceed now?
Well, quickly as a housekeeping item, we have our bios. I think if anyone wants to update their bio, or I think Malinali, we need your bio if we don't have it already. I think that came in section 2. Just a reminder to, set a reminder for yourself to do it. And then in terms of the next.
I'm sorry, where did we send that to?
Jen Cox.
Yeah.
Okay.
To Jen, yeah.
I'm
And
gonna update yours, Bill.
let's see. I think there are a lot of good points in the rest of the handbook. There's a lot of, it's kind of common sense, but also reflective of our board's goals over the years in terms of how they wanted to treat one another and their values. And I think we talked about that at the beginning. So maybe we kind of go through and say if there's anything we specifically want to add or remove. Would that work?
Okay. Yeah, great.
And I know
All
a lot
right,
of this.
so the third section, go ahead. Sorry, Eric.
I'm sorry, I spoke in automatically. No, a lot of this was kind of guided by the California School Board Association. They had a model of this many years ago that we've kind of adapted to over the years to make it our own. But they may have a new model now that I haven't seen, but I know this was where it originated from. Was many districts have the same format or a similar format that was put out many years ago by the CSBA.
And actually, even though I just said that, part of me feels that because we as a group didn't create this, that we should almost just rewrite it and make it more simplified. So I could go either way. I'm really interested in what other trustees think. And I know Jeremy has created handbooks and kind of has ideas about what could be in there. So I want to hear from more of you.
Personally, I like to simplify them as much as possible so that we actually know what's in them. It's easy to know what's in them for the 5 minutes we're spending on, or the hour we're spending on the item. But if we have too much in it, then we just forget. And I think that if we're really going to model our behavior and the way we lead the district based on this, then less is more oftentimes.
Jeremy, you mentioned perhaps you would, with this handbook in mind, go through and see if, and with the ones you've written previously, see if you could come up with a more streamlined version for the board to look at. Is that correct? Yeah.
I'm
That's
willing
just a
to.
possibility.
Yeah.
Of course, the board could do whatever it wants.
Yeah, I'm definitely willing to do that if the board so desires.
Streamline this, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, and if you, I know Paul was taking notes at the beginning on kind of our values and things that we wanted to bring to our, I guess, to the meetings, or the kind of, I'm forgetting the word, tone, I think was the word. But if you could share that with Jeremy, and then you could kind of look at that as you simplify and bring in some of those themes, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, let me take a stab at this, guys, and then we can have another discussion. There's no reason we can't, but otherwise I think we'll be here for the next 5 to 10 hours really trying to go through each of these
Yeah.
in each bullet point.
One
I
aside,
would-
Jeremy, on the third element of section 3, right? So there's effective trustees, number 1, effective governance team, reciprocal support from the board and superintendent. Let's talk for a second about what you were thinking about your evaluation. Because I'll tell you, at this level of a governance document, I would put something in there, for example, of, you know, regular candidate evaluations are done or whatever based on board superintendent goal setting or something.
I gotcha.
Not like that to mention that it happens and that's part of our interrelationship with you as our district CEO. Were you thinking of something more substantive from a procedural standpoint for the evaluation? Because if so, my thinking is we would almost reference a separate policy where we do that. This kind of constitutional governance document, I think that's way too much of a level of detail, but I'd be curious what your thought was when you mentioned, I mean, you made a point of mentioning about the evaluation somewhere later in here. What were you thinking about?
Well, you know, I developed my evaluation system before, just so you know. I didn't care for the one that I had. It was just all narrative. I didn't like that it wasn't specific enough, and I didn't feel like there was really any accountability. So I developed an evaluation system based on somebody else's model. And that way I thought you could give me better feedback at different points in time. And I can share that tool with you. I mean, I have it prepared to pull up if you wanted to go through it. But really, it's broken down into different areas. You know, communication would be an area, leadership would be an area, financial, whatever. It's all broken down. And I think it reflects our goals really well. And there are indicators. I'm not going to hit every indicator because you can't, right? But the indicators just help to frame what we're focused on with that overarching goal. So really, when we're talking about it, I would love that if we had a very clear process. I know this year's been tough, and I own that too. It hasn't been the most important thing to me. Really, getting kids back in school has been the focus, and not so much my evaluation and our process. But I think that if we can lay out, hey, at this point in time, we have a mid-year check-in, you know, and then this point in time is when the evaluation takes place, and here's the tool we're using, so on and so forth. That would be nice.
So if I might, I almost said President Stephanie, Queen and Czarina of all things. If I might suggest, Stephanie, perhaps figure out a way to pull a bullet point that we're going to have regular handed agreed evaluations. That's kind of the statement here.
No, you put yourself up there.
I'm sorry. And perhaps, Stephanie, you appoint an ad hoc to work with the board members to work with Jeremy to do just what he was talking about. If he has a model or a tool he'd like to work, I think we can currently work on that and then bring something back to the board. Mm-hmm. My concern, Jeremy, is I don't know that we've given you goals and parameters at this point, right? And I don't see this meeting as a time to do that, frankly. But I think to develop that, if you have a metric that you're comfortable with, I think you've cut your teeth, frankly, with us. That I'm certainly, you know, we'd be willing to say, look, let's take a look at what you have found works for you. And I think we could be relatively expeditious about that. But just a suggestion, Stephanie, because I think mention of here is interesting because it's not in here. And I think that that's a very important piece of the relationship in the governance team with our one employee that reports to us. But the mechanics, the procedure, the tool, all the rest of that, I think that could happen offline and be done concurrently to kind of bring that back to the board.
Yeah, that's a very, I think a really good suggestion. I see Rich is raising his hand too. I'll just quickly comment that before I call on Rich, that I could see the policy subcommittee as taking that on, since that seems to fall within a policy. So potentially that could potentially work. Rich, why don't you go ahead?
I don't come from a government background at all, so I don't know if this will work or if it does work or whatever, but you know, we just kind of looked over the 5 goals and then all the different things inside those 5 goals that our board has. To me, that's really the question is if I'm going to say, hey, Jeremy, let's meet and do a little evaluation. I'm going to say, hey, Jeremy, how are we doing as a board and how are we doing as a district on our goals? What are you doing to make sure our goals are getting done? All these other things, these little bullet points, I understand it, but I don't like it. And here's the reason why. Because a good bureaucrat would simply just go, hey, I've this week I talked to the Gleek Club. So I met this goal, or I met this bullet point, or I did something. When talking to the Gleek Club, it didn't really accomplish anything. It wasn't part of our goals. Excuse me. So what I'm looking for is, for me, I want to make sure we're winning. And whatever winning means, as we define it in our goals, and are we progressing towards those things, that's what's important to me. I don't know how you quantify that. This is where, I have ideas. Bill, you're really good at putting things together in an organized way. So for me, Jeremy, I'm not looking for someone to have a bunch of bullet points that they can point to and say, I did this, I did this, I did this, so I must be doing a good job. Because to me, that doesn't mean you're doing a good job.
No,
there's a bunch of coaches in college right now that are getting fired who all checked off the bullet points, but they don't have 6 rings on their finger. They didn't win it. And so I'm looking at, we as a group, we need to win for our kids. You're our CEO, as Bill says, puts it. And that's how I'm going to say, hey, Jeremy, hey, it's been 6 months since we got together. Are our kids winning? And if they're winning, then we're winning. And if they're not, then we need to change something. And how you quantify that and put that in the board document, I don't know the answer to that. But that's kind of what I'm really looking more for, is some way to quantify that we're winning, which I think in those goals and the indicators of success, that's kind of really where, so maybe by having you start through that thing, transition through these other sections, I think that's where we can come to a streamline, but a much more valuable document for us.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
okay. I will also say that Jeremy did share his kind of model evaluation with me when we had our planning meeting. So I saw it. It's a 1-pager, very brief, very concise. I think it probably does get to the points that everyone wants it to, but I do think that having some board review in the potentially policy committee format would be helpful. And I think that once we look at it, we may even decide that it could fit in the handbook because it is so brief, or not, if we think that it might be updated regularly and we don't think that's the right place for it. So I think policy committee, are you good with that, Bill? Since it was your idea? Okay, great.
Here, do you want
just my 2 cents?
to show it to you or no?
You might also want to have, oh, sorry, Jeremy.
I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
do you just want me to give you a quick rundown through this just so you can see it since it's a major part of the discussion, or should we just wait and do it through the policy committee?
Bill, you're muted.
Let's see it.
Okay.
Bill, you're muted.
Dr. Porter, could you give me the screen back?
Yes, I'll stop my screen sharing here. As I do that, I might also suggest maybe you want to put something in the handbook about board doing a self-evaluation too.
Yep.
Sometimes
I
that's
was
a good
going to
tool.
make that recommendation. Did it show? Can you see it or no?
Can
No.
you scroll down a little bit?
I'll wait until, okay, I'll try.
Oh, that was the wrong document.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here, this is the major one. This is not what I showed you, Stephanie, but this is what I built it based on.
Okay.
It's built upon a man named Dr. Strong's evaluation tool. Not a big player in California, but was in Arizona. And it's very much to your point, Rich, it's about making progress. It's not about checking off boxes. It's really what I want to be evaluated on. I don't want to just check the box. That's not me doing good by kids or you. I want to make progress and for you to, grade me based on that. So I'm not going to get into all of this. I can share it, but really you're basing this based on exemplary, proficient, developing / needs improvement, or unacceptable. You can decide if you want to wait. I won't go through all of that part with you, but really I just want to show you the performance standards. So for instance, performance standard 1 would be, mission, vision, and goals. And these are just some performance indicators that maybe help frame how I did, if you will. Okay. And again, I'm not going to take a ton of time, but what I showed you, Stephanie, is this. This is how I would be graded. If I was proficient, then I worked with the local school board to formulate and implement the school district's mission, vision, and goals to promote student academic progress. That's me doing something, not checking a box, right? I need to promote some academic progress through this work. Same thing if you're going to performance standard number 2, which is planning and assessment. A lot of LCAP language. I did change this from what it was to fit California. And again, number 2, means the superintendent strategically gathers, analyzes, and uses a variety of data to guide planning and decision-making consistent with established guidelines, policies, and procedures that result in student academic progress. So I like to be held accountable. It's just my personality. And I like the idea that I model. We need to make academic progress to be making a real difference. So anyway, this is what it is. I can share this with everybody, or Stephanie, I can share it with you. You can decide where it goes. As president, I'm not sure what you want to do with this, but there are a number of goals. They all fit what we're talking about here. And really the one pager was this stuff, the exemplary, proficient, improvements, unacceptable. That was the one pager under each topic, because that's really what you're evaluating me based on. The other stuff is just to help you, do the evaluation.
So I would recommend that you share it with each of us individually. Therefore, that allows us to respond back to you and not break the Brown Act. And we wouldn't have to go through the process of having Stephanie be the gatekeeper of all of that. It would be each of us responding back to you with questions or comments. You could then communicate to us, and we could get together later and decide how to work it out.
Yeah, well put, Eric.
So anyway, that was what I've used.
So in looking at the tool, thank you, Jeremy, for showing that to us. I am absolutely of the mind that is way too detailed to go into the governance handbook.
Yes,
I think
sir.
saying in whatever language you and Stephanie would feel comfortable with, since she signs it as the board chair, we'll do an evaluation candidate on an agreed template or something, that there's that commitment there in and amongst our mores and interrelationship. And then we work to adapt. That's not that much different than where we are. Frankly, what I didn't see in there, and I don't want to have a debate about it right now, saw a lot of words and subjectiveness. I didn't see the data, although LCAP, performance, there's ways we would go back to look, and maybe it's to take a deeper dive to look at that. Because I think understanding, in my view, is why I keep going back to what are the superintendent's goals. If we're going to evaluate you based on what between now and the Delta 2 later, right? And I don't think we've done a good job in helping you understand that, other than keep doing what you're doing because the schools are open, and so this is good, right? That's the goal this year. But that would be how I would address the governance handbook piece we're talking about. Make sure we recite that that's a commitment between your bosses, the board, and you as our CEO. And then let's evaluate pretty much post haste the ability of what your evaluation is going to look like. That would be my 2 cents. I don't know what everybody else thinks is the board.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't realize it was a longer document because I had seen just the one pager in the handbook. So I think because we all do the superintendent's evaluation, actually changed my mind. We should all receive it. I agree with Eric. Everyone should get it. You can give your feedback, spend as much time as you want with it, and then we can figure out in the future how to kind of finalize and formalize.
And I did not put that whole thing in the handbook before. It was really just a modified version.
Right.
Well, and let me suggest, we all read good, and then let me walk the walk with, we can do the work. Get it out to us today. Let's start a closed session on performance evaluations to be talking about the process next Tuesday, right?
Do that.
And Stephanie, you can work with Jeremy about shepherding that on, and if we could all get our feedback in or questions. I think to me, it's very important. I do not like people working when they don't know what the rules in on how their peers in the system are going to be evaluating how they're doing, other than you're doing a good job, Superintendent Decker. But we just got to catch up on that. And I think that that's a shortfall for us, you know, and nothing about Eric. I think it's the whole board in this crisis of making sure the doors were open in August. But this is something, you know, we have two roles, as I said. It's creating strategy, policy, and vision, hiring, maintaining, retaining, and training our CEO. We got him still here, but I think we've got to live up to that part of our responsibility.
Well said. You owe that clarity to him as superintendent. Well said.
Any
So
other
do we have
comments?
consensus?
Yeah. Just as he will do with his cabinet and his principals and his leadership at the lower levels. So
I have
and
figured out.
and down the tree as it goes. So
I have figured out how to retain him though. Under the attract and retain, pizza. He loves pizza. That's not
a
an
slave
analogy.
to pizza.
That's not an analogy, Stephanie. That's a fact.
That's a fact.
I'm watching
Okay.
my diet right now,
Acceptable.
Rich. Don't
Hey.
tempt me.
You got to do the cauliflower crust like I've been doing.
Okay. Stephanie, does that feel like consensus on this to you?
I think so. I
Vice
just want to
President
make
Jim?
sure there aren't any other comments. Doesn't look like it. Yep, feels like consensus.
Okay. And I think you could just write up a simple paragraph about the general process of evaluating, put that in the handbook. It'll be done annually. The
Yeah.
superintendent will seek input from all board members. It'll be reviewed, just a few things like that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board in terms of the rest of the handbook? Yeah. My notation here is that the first part of the handbook is fairly general, and I would urge you to let Jeremy kind of shrink that down a little bit. The last section is kind of interesting because you've listed various scenarios and how they would be handled. That might be something you'd all want to look over, like how do items get placed on the agenda? How do you request information from staff? So that's more specific. I don't know that it's controversial, but it is more specific.
I read it and thought it was really good. I thought whoever put this together or when or how it came about, I thought that these were some really good processes that were put in place.
Yeah. There they are now. I think they're on your screen. And to me, they're very good and give some direction. And, Malinali might have some questions about these because I know there was a lot of discussion that went into these. But
Stephanie, do we want to talk
also
about some
very
sort of
detailed.
onboarding process? Because that's
Yeah.
what this would be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I have been exploring kind of different ideas about things that we might want to add to that onboarding. Do we want to affirmatively, when we onboard, put into our governance handbook that we make it, we spend time getting to know one another, or that we, different things that we could formalize. Even one thing I've thought about recently is just our process for leadership in the board. We have a fairly strong tradition in how we handle president, vice president, and succession, and whose turn comes up next, but it's not formalized in the handbook. But I don't know how much time the board wants to spend on those things and how formal we want to make them, or if we'd rather they were kind of unwritten traditions. So I did just want to raise that with everyone to ask, maybe we want a study session where we talk about our processes and kind of get into the nitty gritty, or maybe we don't, and we're pretty happy with where things are now. So I'm really interested in feedback.
I know that when I first got on the board, I appreciated these kind of protocols that were kind of written out because I own my own company. I do whatever I want to do, more or less. So I don't have to. I make the protocols up as I decide I want to. So this is a different environment, and so I mean, placing things on the board, the agenda. I liked reading that. It was great. I tried it, and no, I didn't get a second. So my idea didn't get on the board. So it was like, I was all excited. Oh, I know how to do this now. Great. And then I didn't get a second. So I go, oh, now I know how it doesn't get on there too. But it helped me to understand a little bit and take some ownership and trying to figure out how this works. Right now with this coronavirus stuff, it was helpful when we all went down to, it happened to be in San Francisco. Stephanie and I got to go to a lot of different topics that were brought up, and I don't remember exactly. I was the state.
Oh, CSBA. You mean.
Yeah. That was really helpful for me. I got a lot out of that. And I would, if I don't know if they're having another one or what's going on with it. And if they don't do it this year, if they do it next year, I would still encourage Mal to go to that. The Masters in Governance stuff, I've enjoyed those, completed that process. And those things I would, encourage her to do. But I think leaving these in the handbook or something to that effect is good, because it just gives you a place to say, hey, where do I go to do something? Case in point, like Bill brought up earlier about the confidentiality and stuff, and I'd say, yeah, we're like 9 and 1 on all that stuff. It's been pretty good. There was something that somebody said that our board said, which turns out to be erroneous and whatever, like a lot of stuff. But anyhow, I do like the fact that, anyhow, I would leave these in there in the board. Maybe they need to be refined a little bit, but to a new board member coming in, and even an older board member that may forget, they can go back and refer to. I think these are kind of things that are good to be in the handbook.
Stephanie,
Rich,
to
just
your
so
question
you know,
about,
Rich,
go ahead. Go on, Eric. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that CSBA did have their annual conference in San Francisco, but it was completely virtual. We chose not to go, or I chose not to go. I don't know if any of you others chose to go. But you could have seen some of those same seminars, but you'd be watching somebody present like we're doing now, instead of being able to get your feet on the ground and talk to other trustees that have done it before, and to see the trade show and all the other things. So that was completely virtual this year. It happened in December.
Great. Or Rich, were you kind of just suggesting that the general areas in these protocols are good and we ought to keep them, and that maybe then just have people read through those and see if there's lack of clarity or modifications that are needed? Or what do you see as the next step?
I mean, well, two things. One, as a new trustee coming in, I think it's really important to have something like this in the book. And then maybe we can read through them again now that we've got a little more experience, and say, hey, it's going to be worded a little bit differently maybe. And if we have a suggestion, I think we shoot it off to Jeremy. If any of those board members think that there should be something worded a little bit different or explained a little bit better or added or taken out, we can send that to Jeremy and he can update it.
Yeah.
But I think having this section in general in the handbook, I think it's important.
Okay.
So in terms of the question of, is there anything else we want to add to it? Is anyone feeling strongly that we want to add more? Like, for instance, I feel really strongly that we should all spend time with one another, that each board member should spend one-on-one time with each other, especially when we're bringing on a new board member. But I don't know that we need that to be formalized in the handbook. Maybe it just needs to be talked about. Because I think we're all committed to getting to know one another. And similar with succession planning. So I guess the question is, I'm not hearing anyone saying like, I think that needs to be in there. So I think we're probably okay, but I just want to make sure.
On the succession planning, I wouldn't put it in there. And the reason why is because some people may not want to be the board president or be the vice president or something. They might feel uncomfortable doing that. And they might go, oh, golly, in 2 years from now, I'm supposed to be this. I don't want to do that. I want to. So maybe, I mean, I really didn't want to be the vice president. Not that it's not good or anything like that. I just, I'm a little uncomfortable with that kind of stuff. So, so I don't know that you want to make it so that it's formal where someone has to do it, or they would feel like they're, I don't know.
I think on the flip side, if there were two people who really wanted to be president and there was this, angst or battle, it may be good to have a process. And honestly, I've never had a process that was any different than what we do in Windsor, but just thinking about it, I know it could happen. Is it such a threat that we should formalize? I think maybe that's the question. Is it not a threat, but
You mean let's say, for example, that Bill and I both wanted to be head coach. I mean, that's why there's an odd number of people you voted in, right? Or you think that might cause hard feelings?
I don't even know. I'm actually not even trying to advocate for one way or another, to be honest. I don't have strong feelings. I'm simply trying to raise a question, I guess, just so that we have good discussion.
Yeah, and the way I was looking at it wasn't necessarily you're telling people what to do. And I would just say that you did want to be vice president, but so let's clear that up. But it's more just setting out, this is what we typically do. And, but I don't know that it's necessary,
So, Stephanie, I think not now. I would be interested in institutionalizing our discussion. The onboarding particularly, I'm less worried about the leadership succession. I think the ethos of governance protocols for onboarding, we should do that. And frankly, I'd welcome, you raised it. I think if you took a crack at some developed language, right? It says that the trustees and superintendents discuss and agreed upon the following protocols. I think if you don't mind taking a crack at a first draft of what onboarding could look like, and frankly, Mally, you're going through it now. Maybe there's gaps that you can help identify.
Some suggestions.
Yeah. No, I think that's
fair to work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a couple of things. I think that, for example, the succession process could just be very simple, a couple sentences. And the reason for that is just because as somebody new coming on, it just sort of gives me a basic understanding of what happens and, how the president and vice president are chosen. So just something very basic. It doesn't have to be in depth at all. And then as far as the onboarding process, it has been a little bit tricky only because I know that, we've been in the process of a new website, where all of our information is being stored. And to be honest, it's been a little bit confusing to me. How to access, some of the basic information that I need. So my suggestion there is to include that as part of the onboarding process is, how you get access to board information. But also I think that new board members should also get a hard copy, in the onboarding process. So for example, it would have been really helpful for me to have a hard copy of a handbook and not have to sort of, comb the internet trying to figure out where all these things are, so that has been a little bit confusing.
And you know what? That's a really good point. I've actually always done that before, Malinali, and I didn't do that for you. So I apologize to you. I usually do have a whole binder that I don't put together, but I ask assistant to put together. So, it
would just be nice to have something in hand. So yes. And then I think my last comment is just about, the section about board members spending time together. I think we could just have one sentence that says, the board enjoys, a mix of formal and informal, processes and traditions. And that's it. And sort of leave that, open to interpretation for, whatever board members are serving at the time. But I don't think that needs to be very detailed out as well.
In accordance with the Brown Act and making sure that you're forthcoming with everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Eric, I'm glad you just brought that up. Just for clarification, we could get together, all 5 of us, and have a barbecue at my house or whatever, as long as we're not talking about school, not school business, but, agenda item kind of stuff where you take a vote or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with that, correct, Jeremy?
Correct.
Right.
I didn't think so. I mean,
do you have a date in mind, Rich?
Yeah, it was back in about June of this year. I thought we'd have a nice barbecue and have some fun. And then, we're here today, still where we can't do anything like that. So although I guess we can get together if we're going to eat. So, but yeah, I'm thinking sometime this summer we should have a nice fun and get Dr.
Definition of a serial meeting is when you call each other in order to influence each other towards a decision of something that's going to be on the board. So it doesn't mean you can't get together and have a barbecue. You just can't say, hey, how about you vote this way? That's the intent of that section of the law.
So basically, would this be a violation if I said, okay, here we're barbecuing. I have for those of you who voted this way, I have filet mignon. For those of you who voted that way, here's your hot dog.
As long as I got the filet mignon.
Because there's no discussion, so I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually not a violation.
That's just
bribery.
Yeah.
Simple bribery. That's easy.
No, that's a keto. That's keto diet.
Yeah. Well, I really like what I'm hearing. I really liked Malinali's suggestions about just putting in a couple sentences on those items. If you could do that, Jeremy,
I can
take a crack at it.
Dr. Porter, can I ask you? I know you've seen about 974 of these exactly, and I know that this language exists already. Is there any possible way that you could send me some? Thank you.
Absolutely, I will send you. Yes. And I think it can be done quite simply and still meet the board's objectives. We'll do it. Happy to help.
And then before we move on, Molly, have you gotten what you need to get? Do you feel like you still need any hard copy things? Like just to make sure.
You know what? I actually do. Again, I'm still trying to figure out this new website. So
are you talking about board docs?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be really helpful.
Malinali, I'll have to reach out to you so that, she can kind of figure out what you need exactly and we can get it for you. So,
okay. Yeah, that would be really helpful.
Still on here listening?
Yeah, I think that the first meeting I had with you, Jeremy, it was the old website and then it sort of transitioned into this new website. And I've been trying to figure out where all this information is.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now just two questions. Have you heard anything about the Masters in Governance classes in that program yet?
You know what? I did. I was having a conversation with Jenny about it, and I was just, to be quite honest, I feel like those classes sound good, but they look so expensive.
I believe the district takes care of those.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That wasn't clear to me at the time. So, but I was scrolling through and looking at the different topics and things like that. And also to somebody's earlier point, it does seem like I would be missing out a little bit on an experience just because they're all virtual.
Yeah.
So, that networking aspect wouldn't be there. So I was also a little bit concerned about that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
The other, and then the last thing was, do you get, I don't know if you get the emails yet from SCO, I got one today or yesterday that talked about from Dr. Harrington, that there's 3 things coming out. I'll forward it to you. Did you already get it?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that they had your email.
Right. Just full disclosure, I'm good friends with school board members on other school boards. So they've been also very good in giving me tips and advice. So that's been pretty awesome.
Oh, good. That's great. Since we're talking about upcoming trainings, one housekeeping item I wanted to touch on, since it is getting later, and I feel like once we hit the 2-hour mark, that's when, not as much is going to be accomplished.
Brains start to fry.
Right. But I was wondering if we wanted to divide and conquer in terms of upcoming trainings. If anyone was interested in attending anything that has come across our email recently. I think there was a FICMAT potentially training or workshop coming up in a bit. There's the new school board member training, which I would encourage Malinali to attend. And then there is an event. I think that was a dinner a couple years ago, and now it's a virtual event. that's not really a training, but it is a recognition event. So it would be interesting to go. So
Right.
just wanted
I
to bring
think that.
Yeah, I've attended all of those biennial recognition dinners that they're doing. That's usually at John Ash. You get a nice meal and get to see all the other boards in the county. Obviously, we can't go there for the meal this time, but they're doing something virtually. They have a guest speaker that's usually very dynamic and gives a good motivational speech. Too bad they don't do takeout. You know, we can't all go stop by and pick up a John Ash steak and potato or something. But I've already signed on to attend that again, just because it's a good recognition and it's nice to see who else was elected and who's serving on other boards. And as Malinali said, I have several people that I'm in touch with that are on other boards as well, and former colleagues and such. So it's nice to reconnect with some of them, even if it is virtually. So. But I cannot do the budget meeting next week. I'm teaching at that time. So that's something. I think the 19th there's a prospective meeting or something at SCO. I can't attend that.
It's the new board orientation is on the 19th. The biennial trustee recognition is on February 1st. And then the board member boot camp is on February 20th.
Okay.
So, the 19th is our board meeting next week. I would suggest there's a Brown Act one too. And if that's not familiar with you, Mally, I think the Brown Act training and the boot camp would be good. I was going to actually revisit the Brown Act thing just because I like, and it probably is one of our lawyers given it. But those are, particularly if the master's in governance, I agree with the networking piece, but it's important that I think you do that because this is so weirdly Machiavellian without having the common starting point baseline. We end up talking past each other because we don't have a common understanding of what we're hearing and doing. So were you thinking, Stephanie, that we would sort of divide and conquer and come back and report then to the board as a whole, if that would work out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we email you privately, Stephanie, as far as like what trainings and workshops we'd like to go to? Just because I'd like some time to scroll through those some more and sort of, identify which ones.
Why don't we have it go to Jeremy? Just because so we can avoid multiple emails on a single topic from different people, even though it's totally just logistics. Let's have it go to Jeremy and he can kind of and have Jen. Yeah, definitely to Jen and Jeremy, and Jen will probably be honestly the one who will manage that process, and she'll do a great job at that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't so interested in the Brown Act workshop only because I just went through a workshop for the Windsor Public Arts Advisory Commission that I'm on. So I was going to skip over that one to maybe go to some of the other ones. But Jeremy, do you mind if I give you a call if I have any questions about?
No, I'd prefer if you did. Let's talk through it because it could be overwhelming. And I mean, everything is helpful, but there are certain things that are just more helpful right now. So
right. And I just wanted to be strategic about it. So
yeah, I agree.
Okay, great.
And I don't think Jen is on actively anymore. So I know the board docs comment. I don't know that she heard that. So
that's okay.
I'll follow
reach
up with
out.
her. Okay,
yeah.
Great. And then my last housekeeping item is I just wanted to recognize that Bill sent out, we all chose kind of our focus areas, our schools where we're liaisons, and he right away sent emails to his schools and I think we should all proactively do that in the next couple weeks if we haven't. I was CC'd, so I saw, but I don't know that anyone else has, and I would just encourage everyone on the board to reach out if you haven't and to set a deadline for yourself, probably by the end of the month, if not earlier. I still need to do it, so I'll put that out there on myself.
Good idea.
Oh, and
yeah, I did reach out to my schools and my groups that I'm going to be working with. I've already attended a meeting of the Cali leadership. I'm going to the arts meeting next week, or the first of the month, and so it's good if nothing else they get your contact information and know your schedule and things like that.
And that's the last thing I had. Would it be helpful to anyone to have Jen recirculate the list of who is a liaison to where, just so we all have that kind of in our email? Okay,
Sure.
let's do that. Then we can see what everyone else is up to also. And that's my last thing.
Okay, well, I think you
Could I-
have marching orders, huh? Yeah.
Could I ask one more
Board
thing? of
members, do you
Stephanie?
have other things you'd like to say before we start to wrap up?
Just one question of Stephanie, now that we've kind of transitioned in our secession, like we talked about. Would you like to be CC'd on communication that we give to principals and to leadership groups or clubs and things, or would you rather we just reach them directly? I don't know what your level of involvement wants to be with all of our communication to other groups. Bill did CC you. I don't know if you would have liked that or not like that. So it's a personal preference. I don't think there's a policy about it. So.
Yeah, well, it was definitely good to know. It definitely lit a fire that, oh, I need to do this. It was a good reminder. No, it's always good to be in the loop. So I know Jeremy likes to be CC'd on everything. I'm sure he's expressed that to everyone here. So I would definitely CC him on anything
Yes,
that
please.
goes out like that. And then I think if you would like to CC me, I think definitely feel comfortable, but I would say if you don't have to. So I'll leave it up to each board member to decide.
Yeah,
Thank you.
actually, I have a question about that. And I, again, full disclosure, my brain starts to turn off at a certain hour at night.
All of us.
Yeah, I'm more of a morning person. Like you catch me in the morning and I'm just like on it, but at night I just start to fade out. But my question has to do with, I have reached out to a couple of people who I'm supposed to be the liaison for their group. So for example, Allison Griggs. So my question is, Jeremy, do you want to be CC'd on that communication that I have with Allison?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so this is DLAC and ELAC.
Yeah, I prefer to be in the know all the time. That way I can assist. So yes, please CC me if you're reaching.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it is almost the bewitching hour here. Madam President, other things we need to cover, or we're okay?
I think we're okay. Is there any?
Are we looking for a motion?
Well, in just a moment. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else that we want to raise. I mean, Ava hasn't spoken for a while. Any last comments before we go, since you've been here the whole time?
Whenever we go over stuff like this, I get a little overwhelmed and I need to think about it so I actually understand what's going on. I was just thinking when talking about like preparing new board members, it's just something I made a note of. I know that with the student board member, there's a new one every year, and then the old one is a senior and has a ton going on. So I think I'm gonna work on it, and I was planning on emailing Jen about it, but if we could just establish just a list of things to know, because I know like everything kind of for me happens sporadically with the bio and the picture for the website and getting to know what an agenda looks like and what a presentation should entail. So I think I'm starting to work on it now, but if there's anything that you all with your experience with multiple board members, just things that a new school board member should know so that they don't feel overwhelmed in the beginning and they go into it feeling more confident with their procedures.
Yeah, I think that's a great point for onboarding, for you to help us with that, Ava. You and Anna before you were the first time we had underclassmen doing it. At least I don't know if Eric and I kind of came on the same time. And I want you to know there's the ability to sort of graduate up from being, if you don't love this so much. Next year, if you're interested, and I'd encourage you to think about it, there's sort of regional and statewide representatives to, when we're talking about the California School Boards Association and whatnot in this annual conference, there's school board members that serve at the regional and state level. Those opportunities are available for students as well. And I'd really encourage you, I know you're interested in public policy and those kind of things, to think about that. This does not have to be a one and done for you. It's, again, a different kind of commitment. I always like us being sort of the great and the trendsetter. I'd love it if we could get one of our student board members to fill one of those seats, because somebody's doing it, right? And it's dozens and dozens of students from around the state. So I think the onboarding for your successor, but also recognizing that, you know, this or something else like this, if you have an aspiration next year, please let us know. I mean, one of the nice things for all the meetings you get to send, you get a very glowing, unique letter of recommendation from us for your scholarships and college applications next year. But there's further opportunities too for somebody who's cut their teeth doing what you're doing. So,
That would be super interesting. Thank you.
yeah. All right.
You get a fillet, Ava.
I'm glad.
You know, Richard, you don't know how she's voting yet, baby. Come on.
Yeah, and I think Ava raised a really good point. Jeremy, when you do that update, could you pull in just like a checklist for new board members? I think would be helpful. And then a section on kind of student board member responsibilities. Again, super, you know, concise and brief, but I think if Ava, if you could share just some bullet points on things, I think that would be really helpful. And with that, I think I will entertain, oh, but it looks like we have.
Quick, Ava, have you thought of, as your junior project, putting together kind of a syllabus of what you've done and how you did it? So that way that could be kind of the foundation for all new student board members. That might be a good junior project for you. I'm just kind of thinking how you can kill two birds with one stone, maybe.
I'm very lucky. The AP core only requires a senior project, but now that the student board has their own, now that the school student trustee has their own Google Drive account, Google account, I'm planning on making that more cohesive environment to be passed on so that all of the information is there for everyone who follows me.
Awesome.
Excellent.
If I could ask one thing before we get ready to adjourn, we mentioned in passing a while back that we hope to do some discussion in closed session regarding goals and such on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have other items on closed session where we can just spend that half hour, or do we need to bump it back and start at 5 o'clock or something? I may need to change a schedule if that's the case.
We will probably have to bump it back if we're going to do a robust discussion on the evaluation.
So a 5 o'clock start instead of a 5:30?
I would think so.
Can you have Jen send us an update?
Yeah, I mean, yes. We'll be finalizing tomorrow. I believe, Steffi, you and I meet tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we'll finalize the time. But I would say now, knowing what needs to be on there, it'll be 5.
Okay.
Okay.
And I will make a motion to adjourn.
Do you have a second?
Second it. Oh, I'm sorry, Mal. I think I jumped Mally's.
No, go. It's fine. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank
it's
you.
unanimous.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul Porter. We appreciate your leadership and your candor with us.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
again.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very
Ava,
much.
Thanks for your participation too.
I have one more.
Yeah.
I have one more thing too. With all that's going on in the country right now, it's very heartening for me to see a group of government elected officials respecting and working together like you guys do. So thank you for having me.
It's very heartfelt and right on the spot. Ditto, Paul. Thank you. God bless everybody.
Okay.
See you next week.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
all.
Here, good night.